Hello, welcome back, friends. Today is August 15th, and we're in a whole new studio. Except it's the old studio, and there's a new carpet that actually extends far enough that we can roll our chairs without messing it up.
It might help the audio. It might make it worse. We don't know.
Yeah, we've made some changes, so
And the angle's a little different. I'm sure some of you will be
yeah,
distressed by that.
we're still tweaking things. So let us know in the comments below how angry you are about it.
It looks to me like the camera is just like peeking from behind that monitor.
It does a little bit, yeah.
What are you guys doing?
It gives more of the illusion that they're just another member at the table.
Yeah.
But they are trying to conceal themselves.
Yeah, they're being shady.
Well,
Just like Apple in our
Yeah.
next story.
and apparently the Supreme Court, as we learn more about their hijinks, and they are the ones that we're talking about here because they are the final word. However, as is usual with this story, this is still not the final word.
No.
It must continue forever.
U.S. Supreme Court refuses Epic bid to let App Store order take effect in Apple case. So this is such a weird story. I don't want to recap the whole Apple versus Epic thing, but Apple basically won. But Apple being Apple, they the only thing they didn't really win on was that they're interfering with commerce blatantly. In that if I have an app in the App Store and I say, hey, you can go pay for this app on the website, Apple says it's not allowed in their terms of service, which is blatantly interfering with commerce and has been illegal in the era before computers for north of 100 years, but somehow with computers is different. And so Epic won that tiny part of their lawsuit, but the order hasn't taken effect yet. And so they said, hey, can we just go ahead and do this? And the court said no. So this is a bit of a nothing burger.
Well, but they thought they were going to have the links to external payments. Not anymore. Apple wins again. And not only do they interfere with commerce, but they regularly wipe certain parts of their bodies with the Constitution.
U.S. Supreme Court allows Biden to regulate ghost guns, quote unquote. Or a ghost gun is defined as you buy the parts of a gun that you can finish machining yourself on a drill press or, with other common machining equipment. And that produces a firearm that's not necessarily serialized or anything else like that. And so the Supreme Court has said, well, yeah, lawmakers can define that as a firearm, we guess. Which is weird because making firearms yourself from nothing has always been fine. It's weird we keep forgetting that.
I think there's a concerted effort to make us forget. But don't forget about all that money rattling around if you want to make some chips. And it turns out a lot of people want a piece of it.
U.S. reports big interest in its $52 billion semiconductor chips fund. Doesn't seem like $52 billion is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but
That's surprising. Also, though, like people interested in free money.
I
Like,
don't know.
52 billion is not enough. 52 billion is like, we're going to keep Mauser Electronics alive for another 10 years.
There
$52
were
billion.
400 some odd companies who had expressed interest in this cash.
I bet at least half of those have no plan
Yeah.
and no staff,
Yeah.
no office.
Yeah.
It's just on paper in case they can get that money, and then they'll backfill everything from that.
I would much rather see, 30 to 50% of that go to entrepreneurial types who are, we're going to do this to revitalize more entrepreneurial operations around high technology. Because there's a lot of opportunity for that, but incumbents, it's just impossible.
I'd like to see it cut out of the budget and reduced from the taxes. And let the entrepreneurs do their own.
I'm just assuming that that's impossible.
Yeah, if we didn't give it to them, we'd for sure give it to Ukraine. So the White House is getting more interested in technology. Obviously, they're starting to understand the importance of it just now, basically. And they're also starting to understand the dangers.
White House holds its first ever summit on the ransomware crisis plaguing the nation's public schools. But this is only for public schools. Never mind the hospitals and critical infrastructure that are also experiencing a ransomware
Some
crisis.
West Virginian schools got hit.
Yeah.
That's near us.
But they point out the big problem with public schools is they're not taking it seriously. There was a statistic in here. 16% of public school districts have network security staff. That's down from 21%. So we're descending. We're having less of those.
What do I even pay you for? Is probably what's at work there.
It's also going to be, you have your chief information security officer type role. And it's like, even in West Virginia, let's say conservatively that would be $85,000 a year. There's going to be a lot of very angry teachers that the computer security person is making $85,000 a year. Very angry.
Supply and demand. And the Chinese economy really doing poorly. Really seems like a lot of their bad decisions are catching up to them all at once. Or maybe I'm just being propagandized. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But it definitely seems like it's not doing well there. And so the White House has decided that maybe we should protect our citizens from getting burned by that particular fire.
Biden issues an executive order restricting U.S. investments in Chinese technology. Chinese real estate, however, still completely fine.
Don't do that.
Don't do either one of those things. Good Lord.
There was a comment in here, and I got what it was saying, but it was just really funny. It was like, don't be afraid of China, but also be a little afraid of China.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay.
I mean, we are sanctioning them into the Stone Age. If we get our way, we will destroy their technology.
In hindsight, the investments that China was doing in American technology was just utterly brilliant. The way that they were investing in companies that provide things like network cameras and routers and firewall appliances, like for small offices as well as large offices.
And all of our land.
Those investments were incredibly strategic. Very well done. Was there an American equivalent outside of like a hedge fund? I don't think there was.
Well, our government may be not good at that, although they are very adept at overthrowing governments. So I find it hard to believe they wouldn't have been doing something like that. But they are not great compared to the rank and file citizenry at hacking and data protection. They actually get outpaced in that regard constantly. Every time there's some sort of security get together, they get embarrassed. So they've said, you know what? Maybe we can tap into that.
The Pentagon has launched an AI competition to solicit help in securing their computer systems. It's going to dole out a total of $18.5 million to winners in different categories. That's kind of a pittance for, if you can actually come up with something that inexpensive that can secure Pentagon machines, that's an incredible deal.
Also, you have the drawback of no one in that community ever trusting you again.
Yeah.
Because you're working for the Pentagon.
Why curious? I was like, why is the Pentagon trust these people at this conference? Like,
I got nobody else.
I
those
guess.
poor folks like, I was just trying to scratch out a living. I don't care. It's just,
You can never come back.
I don't know why we don't subscribe to a mutually assured destruction doctrine from an economics standpoint. It's like, yeah, China's going to invest, the U.S. is going to invest. Let's just do it at parity.
It's because of the people that lead us and the people that lead them. That's why. I mean, it's obvious. And those people have set their sights on the big tech companies and the big, we've hit them with some small stuff, but when it comes to Amazon and Google, the big one, the silver bullet is antitrust, and they have been working hard to avoid that.
Judge clears the way for the DOJ's antitrust case against Google to go to trial. All right. Sounds good.
So was this was not the analytics one, or was it?
I thought this was the commerce one.
Business practices. There was one specific thing. Probably the ads and stuff. Online search, competitive. Yeah, there's another one about the other thing. But yeah, this is the one where if they win here, they will pull Google apart, and they want to do everything they can, or Alphabet, I guess.
Well, Google has already pulled itself apart. They would just insist that Alphabet be the investment company, and then each unit of Alphabet is autonomous, which is not a terrible idea. It's just that we'll really screw it up when it comes to forcing them to implement it.
Okay.
See also AT&T.
This is the analytics one.
Yeah. Google fails to end its $5 billion consumer privacy lawsuit. But honestly, if you're Google lawyers and you're looking at this and you're saying, we're like trillions of dollars almost, sort of, kind of, and it's only going to be $5 billion. If we get out of this forever, that seems reasonable.
Let's just stop with the one, though.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to pay all the European countries. Australia, Canada. You definitely you don't want to get caught by one regulator, because then they all have a case against you, because you know that you're guilty. You know in your heart that you are doing awful, illegal things. And boy, we hear about that a lot in the banking industry, don't we?
Actually, I thought the Wells Fargo one in this article, I thought they did a much better job than some of the other banks that we've seen. It was a lot more subtle.
Well, it's a pretty low bar and also still wildly illegal.
Banks hit with a $540 million fine for using Signal and WhatsApp to evade regulators. So it turns out Wells Fargo, there was a lot of evidence because some of their employees preserved some things of them doing things that they knew they shouldn't be doing via WhatsApp and Signal. But they said, global situation, we couldn't come into the office to do the work. We were going to use these apps, which there probably is a little bit of truth to that because they couldn't face-to-face say the things that they never put in computers. But that also kind of revealed some corrosion on the inside of this where, as a systemic thing, Wells Fargo, like employees would get together and talk about things that they knew were bad. But when you can't physically do that because of the global situation,
You just text it.
yeah, and it's just, but you know, those things, but it's got to be secure. It can't just be texting because that's archived. So WhatsApp and Signal. But this doesn't address any of those things. It's like, wait a minute, you mean systemically, you know, your very constitution, you do this kind of behavior? That doesn't address that. They're just, don't use the apps.
Also, they got busted doing all this stuff in the 2008 crisis.
Yeah.
And they promised they'd never do it again.
Yeah. This is just amazing. Like you peel back the layers here, like as a citizen taxpayer and you're looking at this, it's just, it's hard not to be despondent.
Is the word amazing the right adjective to use?
Astonishing.
Yeah. Just,
Negatively, so.
and we seem to be so, you know, the FCC, like, we had a Lena Khan story too, and it's just, our heart's in the right place, but man, it's just so dumb.
Well, the FCC wants everybody to have the internet, but what is the cost of the internet? Is it more than $35? They say in some places it is.
The FCC prepares a $75 monthly broadband subsidy for high-cost areas. I'm skeptical this will be useful for high-cost areas.
Target areas where ISPs face economic hardship.
That sounds like everywhere all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that this would be maybe bigger cities where it would be more expensive, but I think it's more about like out of the way places where you can't get maybe a physical connection. So you have to do some kind of wireless or something that's more expensive.
And before your bill raises $75 every month.
The weird thing about that is you don't have to apply it to the cheapest plan. So you could get like, if you somehow swindled this and you could get the expensive fiber plan, you can still put that toward it, even if the fiber plan is like $200 a month. And this is a terrifying future that, I mean, I'm currently living it, but it's only going to get worse. And at some point I'm going to have to buy another car. How do you avoid this? And it doesn't seem like there's a way. Maybe California can save us.
California's privacy regulator's first case, probing internet connected cars. So the California lawmakers are starting to notice, like, hey, wait a minute, these connected cars are generating a lot of data. Who owns the data?
Is it wrong that we're getting tracked every time we get in a vehicle?
I really do. Does any lawyers out there want to comment on the possibility of if you drive a car and you generate a lot of data with the car, are the companies that are collecting your data effectively stealing your labor?
Well, many of you who live in socialist nightmares know the trials of standing in line for government services that are free and wonderful. And Canada is one of the worst, but they're going to fix it, they say.
Canadian government services to become digital first. So that means that you can sign up and do stuff online, and maybe that'll be better.
This is always a lovely thought, but I feel like every government website I've ever used has been a real pain in my butt.
Yeah. It's an easy target. I mean, think about like the IRS. The IRS is not going to be able to protect your data.
They promise that this will not leave old people stranded and unable to do the most basic things because they can't comprehend the online part of it. I don't know if I believe that.
Have you seen a site map on a government-run agency?
Have you seen all the elderly people that New York City murdered from stuff like this? It's like, oh, they just need to go here and apply for this subsidy, and then they won't be kicked out of their house. It's like, did you really expect them to be able to do that?
Now, a cynical person might argue that everything being online doesn't just make it more convenient, but it makes it all like completely surveillable. It's not a word.
Is that
Right?
Observable.
observable? Yeah, maybe.
Trackable,
Yeah.
spyable. And over in the UK, when given really concrete explanations of why the thing that they're doing is phenomenally stupid, they just keep responding with, think about the children.
UK defends its plan to demand access to encrypted messages to protect the children.
The guy they interviewed was like, well, I don't want them to read my private messages either, but I also want to protect kids. And it's like, but
You are
Yeah.
a useful idiot. Sorry.
However, we do know that some of these platforms are hotbeds for child abuse and words we can't say. Actually, probably shouldn't have said that, right? And yeah, you know what? I don't care. We need encryption. But we won't get it. And we're not the only ones who are just spraying fire hoses of money in order to try and attract chip manufacturing. Germany has also made some incredible concessions.
Germany spends big to win an $11 billion TSMC chip plant. This comes as TSMC reported that Apple apparently bought up all their capacity for 3 nanometers, like all of it, for a year. Nervous laughter.
They're not only going to give them all that money up front, but they're going to give them a 25% tax break. And some other of the neighboring countries also have some big companies that are going to be a part of this thing.
do you think TSMC is going to be happy about Germany's labor laws?
They'll probably be unhappy about that, but they'll probably be happy that they can hire lots of smart people.
Well, but this guy who was spearheading the whole thing said we have to massively increase immigration for this to work. He doesn't believe that Germans can do these jobs.
And probably not so much because Germans can't do these jobs, but Germans won't do it for the pittance they'll pay.
Or they want to make sure that they can still pay the pittance that they're paying in Taiwan. And the war on cash, it's definitely a thing. Like if you don't think that it's happening, we got another story about Australia later that really points it out. And very few of our leaders are against it. Obviously, we go back to the surveillance issue because once there's no cash, they can look at everything that you do. But one man is standing up for it.
Austrian leader proposes enshrining the use of cash in his country's constitution. And man, I read some more quotes from this person, and this seems like somebody who has seen the coming darkness and is saying, we need to get ahead of this.
Is he Austria's Doom Ron Paul?
Yeah.
Well, I love that meme.
I was actually going to make that comparison, but I didn't know if enough of our audience would get it. But
That's a vintage meme, but it's a good one.
this guy is acting like Ron Paul did when they let him audit the Fed. He's like, let me get in there. I'll fix it. And they let him in there, and he's like, it's much worse.
Why
than I
didn't you
thought."
stop it?
You're gonna hear from people they're gonna want to cancel you because of his political affiliations and you praising him.
I'm just
The meme
praising
is funny.
his
I'm just here to laugh.
thoughts about cash.
But amazingly, Austria is still using a ton of cash for whatever reason. They have not bought into the electronic payments. I don't know what it is culturally about them.
Yeah, that is odd.
But,
Culturally, a lot of people apparently agree with this guy.
I will say I don't use
That's
cash
probably
a
also
whole lot.
bad to say because sorry.
I also don't use cash a lot though. Like I appreciate being able to, but like unless I'm doing like a trade on like Marketplace,
we
I
are
almost never use
our
cash.
we've fallen into the convenience trap, right?
Right.
We probably shouldn't.
All the trees that I had to deal with because like the storm and the hail damage and blah blah blah. Those guys all want to be paid in cash, and everywhere locally will not take $50 bills because of the level of counterfeiting.
Really?
Yeah. I actually had one place I was going to get lumber to fix one of the things, and the lumber place thought it was a counterfeit $50 bill, and I had literally just come from the bank because I'd paid the guy that was
Do
helping
they
me.
not have the marker? We used to just use a marker when I was a cashier.
Yeah, they used the marker, and the marker was fine, but they were like, they were like, I'm going to keep it. And I was like, no, I'm going to take it right back to the bank because I just came to the bank, and I went to the bank, and I was like, they wouldn't take this. And the bank was like, no, this is real. But the level of paranoia is real.
When I used to, again, when I was a cashier, there was like a festival that would come into town once a year. And at that point, we had to start marking all the way down to like tens because people would come through and use counterfeits all the time.
That's
But
a lot of effort.
Yeah, but the markers were accurate. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't just assume it's a new bill.
But we're also, I mean, at this point, because the government wants to be rid of cash, I'm sure we're not pushing anti-counterfeiting at all, right?
Right.
Like we're not moving the needle at all
Yeah.
with that technology.
That seems to be the answer. Is that the local things are just, oh, you got screwed. Sorry. Jeez.
Well, Norway, we've been following this story for a while. Norway had this sword of Damocles over Facebook, and they're like, listen, Facebook, if you don't get it together, you don't start doing what our laws say, we're going to start fining you every single day. Now, we've come to the end of that, not because Facebook capitulated, but because the entire EU went against them, and now they're going to have to do the consent thing. But Norway is still here with their fines.
Norway to hit Meta with fines over Facebook user privacy from next week. It's going to be about $98,000 a day.
And they won't care. They'll pay that up until they switch over for the consent, which might have already happened. And then they'll just pay the money. And they're just like, yeah, that's fine. Part of our doing business. And here's the...
I thought this was the next story. Sorry.
The Australia story. And Australia really is the test bed for globalism and control. I feel for you, the Australians.
Strongest sign yet. Australia is headed toward a totally cashless society. Cashless banks. You can't take, there's no teller.
What's the purpose of a cashless bank?
You deposit money, you give them the money, you never get money out.
That's how it works in China right now.
Hey, here's my doctor's note that says I need $3,500 to repair all the decking around my house the trees ate.
And China will be continuing that lockdown and control with their online apps, including the banking apps, because they want to know everything about your app.
China to require all apps to share business details and new oversight push. And it didn't get enough attention, but even apps that have tokens, anything that could possibly be used as currency, they want to report on. And they're going to treat it like a financial app. So like if you get, stars in something, it's like, I'll trade you some stars in Farmville. And it's just like, that's a financial transaction. They want a report on that.
So even if you've got a little mobile game on the App Store, you have to go through this process or Apple's going to take it down, and Apple will do it.
Yeah.
Because Apple will do whatever China says. And China, much like our manufacturing industry, the Chinese research industry seems to be reeling from this separation because they might have liked to look at our papers sometimes, and they're not allowed to anymore.
China universities waste millions and fail to make real use of research. Audit finds an indictment of tech-sufficiency drive. There's a lot of stories this week that it seems like the real life idiocracy stuff coming to life. And this is like some of the people in the research, they were just going through the motions, but there was nothing going on up here. That was my impression anyway.
Well, I think probably what's happening here is they have a system where you don't get rewarded for the real thing. You get rewarded for the bureaucratic thing.
Yeah.
And they've comfortably gotten into that groove and everybody was happy. But now the world has changed. And they're like, no. We need real research all of a sudden.
Well, but also, think about the story for like the room temperature superconductor. Like if somebody discovers that in China, they're just going to be like, I didn't discover anything interesting here. I did something wrong. And then they just move on.
This doesn't fit the bureaucracy. I have to file so much paperwork to do this.
Right.
We're just not going to deal with it.
Yeah. So how do you ever move anything forward? You don't discover a room temperature superconductor, but you discover something interesting.
Well, this is a story that we see quite a lot when the government gets people who are saying things they don't like. You just shut down social media. The latest would be Iraq.
Iraq blocks Telegram app besides personal data violations. That's weird. It's weird though. It's weird the timing of this. It's weird because we don't know that Telegram is actually secure. In fact, the preponderance of evidence suggests that it is not secure.
I don't think that they're mad because it's end-to-end encryption. I think they're just mad because people are saying things on there they don't approve of.
Yeah. But how would they know unless they have insight into it?
Well, I mean, like us, in every group chat, there's at least 3 federal agents, right?
That's why every time you make a joke, you have to put in all caps. I'm just kidding, FBI.
And Saudi Arabia, do we make a lot of phones in Saudi Arabia? I guess this is for imports too, but if the EU is doing it, wouldn't they I guess they wanted it to be their own thing. They wanted to make their own announcement.
Saudi Arabia announces standard USB-C charging for ports for all electronic devices from 2025. Okay.
sure. And much like the Australia story, this proves that we are definitely circling the drain down toward the cashless lockdown control of the CBDC.
Brazil's central bank names its digital currency DREX, scheduled for a 2024 launch.
What does DREX mean?
I don't think they
Is
gave the acronym.
there might be an acronym in their language and I just don't know it. But
Comment below for the name of the coolest currency in the world. I'm gonna put my my thought is drachma.
Stanley Nichols.
I'm gonna go pieces of 8. This was I should have
This is
cut
barely
this
even
one.
an article.
Yeah, I actually meant to cut this.
It's
but
like a paragraph.
The Verge is just giving us some Meta's giving up on a failed feature. Not surprising.
Meta's giving up on Messenger's ability to use SMS, short messaging. Meta had this vision that they would be the iMessage of iMessage, and they failed to achieve that, so they're abandoning that. And no one is the iMessage of anything.
Everybody's abandoned SMS at this point.
Yeah.
And if you had any sort of, I don't know how to describe it. If you were the kind of person we need in this world, you would have abandoned Reddit.
Yeah.
But you didn't, did you? Because we can tell because it's still there.
The Reddit protest is finally over. Reddit won. Did they, though? I mean, the traffic in a lot of the subreddits I follow is way, way down. But
Still in business.
I don't know where it all went. Yeah, still in
People
business.
making up niche hobby forums. Forum.level1text.com.
So they point out that they had a couple of menswear subreddits were the last to fall. I think they're just shut down or taken over.
Canning took a while. And then they finally got taken over too. Even though it's like a really niche subreddit.
And the scab mods have all been put in place. Reddit kind of treated this like we treated South America.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of this dude. Did you guys?
No, I read about it like while it was happening. And I was like, I don't even know who this is.
Well, he can draw a crowd. He's got the popularity.
Twitch streamer charged with inciting a riot after giveaway draws huge crowds in Union Square to New York City.
I'm not so sure. Well, I mean, it's probably some of it is popularity, but I think part of it was just I'm giving away lots of free tech. And people were like, okay. And then, yeah.
And it took them very little time to go feral and start just destroying things.
Black Friday comes early.
Seems to be what we do when we get into groups these days.
I would like to think that our audience would go less feral, but I suspect that's wishful thinking.
I think most of our audience will be like, a crowd? No, thank
Ew,
you.
yeah. That's, yeah. The idea of showing up to like try to win a contest thing and there's tons of other people there. No thanks.
Our audience struggled with the decision to go to LTX or not. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And much like the, like you're just simply not going to be able to opt out of things anymore unless your government, like the EU, insists on it and Facebook has to ask for your consent. The same exact thing is true for TikTok.
TikTok's algorithm will be optional in Europe. So TikTok users in Europe will be able to see For You videos that don't actually
Are not actually for you.
are not algorithmically chosen based on what you've watched previously. And one reason we mention this is because Google recently announced that with YouTube, they're going to go the opposite way. It's going to be a blank page. But I think we got that in nonsense, don't we? Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, there it is. Oh, good segue.
What foreshadowing?
YouTube will display a blank home feed if your watch history is turned off. Which company is more vindictive here?
I'm sad to say that I actually use the YouTube recommendations a lot.
YouTube has no idea what I want 99% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. It gives me a lot of garbage.
They are on point with my Japanese travel videos.
It gives me, sometimes it'll give me some good memes, or otherwise it'll be like forest stream in nature, 10 hours. And it's a lot of that same content over and over.
Why are you not into that?
I mean, I like it, but it's usually like what I listen to while I'm working.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Just nature sounds.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube Shorts, I guess, is getting some traction. Some people are using it, and
I think this is all smokescreen.
Smokescreen for the spammers or for YouTube?
I think YouTube is getting ready to change how YouTube works, and this is a trial.
or it's not competing.
Yeah.
And everybody's using TikTok, and they're going to use this as the excuse to kill it, as Google loves to kill.
YouTube is deactivating links in shorts videos, they say, to combat spam. So there's other anti-spam measures that are happening, but basically if you have links to things like Incompetech for your music or your forum, it's like, hey, here's the hard part of this how-to on the forum. Go here and look at the forum.
It won't let you. I tried to put a link to a government website about forestry, and it wouldn't let me save it.
That wasn't even a short. That was a video.
Yeah, that was just a video.
And that was a .gov address. YouTube is moving to make it harder to link off of the platform. Mark my words.
And mark these words, do not do any financial planning that depends on this. You will not get this money in most cases.
In all cases, Elon Musk says X will fund legal bills if users are treated unfairly by their bosses for something you said on X, which is, Twitter. X is Twitter. Twitter's X. I don't know.
It'll always be Twitter to me.
Yeah. Me too.
We see these headlines all the time. You might just like a post on Twitter, or you might comment on something or whatever. God forbid you post your own thing, and then somebody, rats you out to your boss or whatever, and you get fired. So he's saying in those situations, he will pay your legal bills. He won't.
No, not even a little bit. He's got his own legal bills.
Which he probably doesn't pay.
No.
Certainly doesn't pay his office rent.
And this is another thing that I have extreme questions about. Now, this was, what day was this?
This has gone back and forth all week, so I don't know what's true anymore.
August 6th. In the meantime, he has announced that he has to get an MRI because he might need surgery, which will be an excuse to put this off.
The cage match is back on. Musk says Zuck fight will be live streamed on X, pending the results of the MRI, of course. Or not.
It's great hype, though, like PR. I'll watch it if it happens.
I'm pretty sure that Zuckerberg's in better shape, but also his Android endoskeleton was probably no contest to begin with.
Yeah, 10 years is a big thing to overcome in the fight game.
Yeah.
Musk is way beyond what most professional fighters would consider getting back in.
Yeah.
There was a graphic being shared, and I don't know who made it, but it said that Musk was like 160 pounds, and I was like, no way. No way.
That was probably kilograms, right?
I don't know.
Is this going to be like Game of Thrones, where at the last minute they invoke some sort of obscure rule that lets them substitute their champion?
Who do you think he would
Like a
pick?
trial by
He
combat.
sent in a robot?
No, he would literally send in the mountain. It would literally be just the scene from Game of Thrones.
That is like the billionaire way of going. You just pay someone else to deal with it.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun to watch. If it happens, I'm looking forward to it. Now,
I didn't understand this story at all.
I am just astonished with, I guess because we're getting older and the young generation that came up with Pokemon cards are now adults and they're not abandoning the Pokemon cards as adults.
Kids love them too. They're hard to find around Christmas time. Like I've tried and it's hard.
And this guy decided, he gave up the job that everybody in the world wants to do Pokemon card trading full time.
Ex-NFL player Blake Martinez banned from reselling Pokemon cards on Whatnot.
I guess Whatnot is one of those live streaming, the Chinese where you sell things, right? Do I understand that?
QVC, but for Gen Z.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So they point out that it was also a gambling thing. When you open a pack of Pokemon cards, it's guaranteed to have one card that's a certain type of card.
Like a foil or something, yeah.
No, it's some kind of, I guess they have, I know Magic the Gathering. You know how Magic the Gathering had different kinds of mana, like the forest and the mountain and stuff like that. So they had a game where if you could guess what the one in that pack was while they went through it on the air, you could win. And they're saying that these guys were sleight of handing. So they would see the numbers and they would see the most bets to the one that would pay out the best. And they would sleight of hand that in and be like, oh, look, it's this one.
Oh.
And a lot of people claim to have caught them at that. Plus they would claim that they would buy these packs after they'd been opened and they knew what they were getting because it was on the stream, but then they didn't get the good cards. and there wasn't much they could do about it. So now, this wasn't just him. He had a whole staff. They've all been banned from this card shop.
I didn't understand I thought it was just accusations of impropriety, but it sounds like it probably was.
I don't know if they have hard proof, but apparently it was enough for Whatnot to kick him off entirely.
I mean, if he was live streaming it, eventually you screw up, right?
He made $11.5 million in revenue in less than a year selling Pokemon.
We should get into Pokemon cards.
How can we incorporate this into the KVMs?
Every time you switch inputs, a card gets spit out.
This is a blue mana KVM. Very rare. Well, I don't think I'm ever going to be into the Pokemon card world.
No. I loved it when I was a kid, but I didn't really understand the actual card game. I just liked the shiny cards. I liked the artwork.
Magic the Gathering was kind of fun. It was sort of a fun game mechanic, but compared to like how much fun you could have playing, games like Monster Train, or what was the other one? There's another one that was even more popular.
Deck builders. There's like a billion of them.
No, there was one that was Game of the Year.
Was it the one that had the story where there was different phases of it? It started with an I.
There's Inscription.
Inscription. That's what I was
Inscription
thinking.
was pretty good too.
That was more of a meta card.
Yeah.
But the business model of Magic the Gathering and Pokemon is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't take that away from them. It's feeds the addiction. It's kind of like the TikTok of physical media.
Anyway.
And kind of useful for kids to learn social skills. I mean, I certainly learned to deal with people better trying to trade cards than other things.
Other things like drugs.
It will be a useful skill in the post-apocalypse, bartering. You definitely want to teach your kids that.
Charm. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time. Bye!